In the White House, President Trump announced that the Gaza Board of Peace will be announced early next year and not by Christmas, as had earlier been hinted. The U.S. United Nations Ambassador Mike Waltz is in Israel in the meantime and has made clear that Hamas will be disarmed and will have no role in Phase 2 of Trump's UN-backed Gaza plan. More from ILTV's Steve Leibovitz.
U.S. President Donald Trump says that an announcement about which world leaders will serve on the Gaza Board of Peace should be made early next year and not before Christmas, as had been hinted. Trump told reporters in the White House that a variety of leaders want to be on the board that he will chair, which was established under the Trump plan that set up a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
Well, we'll do it early next year, and the Board of Peace it'll be one of the most legendary boards ever. Everybody wants to be on it. It's mostly going to be, I guess, we weren't thinking about it that way, but they want to all do it. Basically, it'll be the heads of the most important countries.
Visiting U.S. United Nations Ambassador Mike Waltz is in Israel in an effort to push for Phase 2 of President Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan. Israeli President Isaac Herzog thanked Waltz for his role in advancing the UN Security Council resolution backing Trump's plan, warning that delays allow Iran and its proxies to reorganize. The ambassador said the resolution creates a clear framework, a technocratic Palestinian Authority to restore services in Gaza, a funding mechanism, and an international stabilization force. Waltz reiterated Trump's position that Hamas has to go.
And I want to be clear, as Hamas has to go. And the President Trump has been clear that's going to happen the easy way or the hard way. Right. But there will not be any more Hamas. And what we cannot do, what we're determined to avoid, is what I call the definition of insanity. Somehow Hamas is allowed to survive, they rebuild, the international community pours billions into reconstruction, Hamas attacks again, and Israel has no choice but to respond. And here we are in this cycle of insanity.
And meanwhile, high-level talks in Washington are zeroing in on Hezbollah's continued ceasefire violations in Lebanon. Foreign Minister Gidon Sa'ar, on a visit to the U.S., is warning that Israel's patience is running out. Foreign Minister Sa'ar calls Hezbollah the main obstacle to regional stability, linking the group with Hamas and the Houthis as a single Iranian-backed terror network that must be disarmed. In meetings at the State Department, Sa'ar told Secretary of State Marco Rubio that Israel may soon have no choice but a major offensive, as President Trump's end-of-year deadline for the Lebanese army to disarm Hezbollah approaches. Israel says Hezbollah is rebuilding on all fronts and warns it will not wait forever. Washington is asking Jerusalem to give Lebanon more time, but has also warned Beirut that failure to act will leave the U.S. unable to hold Israel back. Israel has carried out near-daily air and military strikes across southern Lebanon since the ceasefire to target Hezbollah infrastructure, including ammo depots, command posts, and launch sites, and even struck Beirut's southern suburbs, killing its military commander. Israel says it is preventing the group's rebuilding in violation of the U.S. brokered truce. Israeli intelligence assesses that the Lebanese government wants to disarm Hezbollah but can't, fearing internal collapse or even civil war. Meanwhile, Hezbollah, despite last year's losses, is restoring its military strength with fresh Iranian funds. Israel-Lebanon talks continue, with another round expected next week, but tensions are rising, and the issue is set to dominate the Netanyahu-Trump meeting in Florida later this month, where a U.S. green light for stronger action could be decided. And joining us now with more on the latest developments in Gaza and the region is Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Jonathan, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Shalom, thanks for having me.
So, Jonathan, there seem to be two very different realities. On the one hand, you have this peace plan, the rhetoric of peace, and the strong desire on the part of Israel and the United States for a lasting peace. But on the other hand, you have the reality on the ground that paints a very different picture, one that sees Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran all rearming and gearing for another round. So at what point will Israel and the United States have to face the reality on the ground?
Yeah, you're right. There's definitely parallel realities here, but I would offer a little bit of a different interpretation. I'm not entirely sure that Israel is looking for peace at this stage, because realistically, as long as we are surrounded by the groups and leaderships that we are surrounded by, I don't think that really peace is a realistic thing to be looking for, but first and foremost, victory, security, and perhaps then move on to positive things like the expansion of the Abraham Accords. But, you know, as long as Hamas exists in Gaza, as long as Hezbollah exists in Lebanon, I don't think it would be really realistic and serious to speak about peace, but to contain the enemy and perhaps to defeat the enemy and deter the enemy from fighting. Now, when it comes to what the U.S. and Israel will do, the thing is that there is a lot of very heavy presidential investment in the process in Gaza, and I'm not entirely sure that reality will be reflected back to Washington, D.C., and my current concern is that there are a lot of Hamas supporters that are interfering with President Trump's plan. The Turkish and the Qatari and the Egyptians are very active, proactive, and what they're basically doing, they're trying to dilute President Trump's plan from the very clear and correct plan that it was formulated, and as it was accepted and adopted by the Security Council. What they're trying to do now is to dilute it and actually have Hamas retain capabilities and stay in power without being disarmed. And that is a very dangerous path to go down, and I hope that the president and his team will be able to see through that move and not allow it to happen.
And that's interesting because we are seeing disagreements right now between Israel and the United States over which countries will participate in the international force. There are delays, as we've heard. But at the end of the day, soldiers from Europe or from other Arab countries will not be the ones fighting Hamas. It will ultimately fall on Israel and on the IDF. And it seems that the longer Israel delays, the harder it will be to go back in and to fight Hamas, which is rebuilding. I mean, what is your analysis of this?
I think you're right. The longer it takes, the longer time Hamas will have to reestablish their command and control, their logistics, their weapons manufacturing, and consolidate power in Gaza. Every day that goes by and the International Stabilization Force isn't fielded is a day that is wasted, and it's good for Hamas. And I think that at the end of the day, Israel will have to either threaten to use force or actually use force in order for things to change significantly in the Gaza Strip. And this will be a tremendous diplomatic and military battle here between Israel on one side, Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt on the other side, and then the U.S. in the middle, having to decide which side it will prefer and who will actually get to have the final word about the future in Gaza. I can say one thing pretty clear. I don't think Israel, however heavy the diplomatic pressure will be, can allow a situation to exist whereby Hamas has any say or existence in the future of the Gaza Strip, which is what the other side is trying to create. And I don't think that Israel will be able to tolerate that. And if push comes to shove, a few months down the road, Israel will have to do the heavy lifting, and I hope that we won't have to find ourselves in that situation, but that is definitely a possibility.
And the same goes for Lebanon. You know, Lebanon has so far failed to uphold its part of the agreement and disarm Hezbollah. Whether they simply can't or won't, that's another matter. And so it will also ultimately have to fall on Israel to do this job. But again, Israel can't act or won't act until it gets the green light from President Trump. How likely is that to happen?
I think it's likelier that Israel will operate against Hezbollah in Lebanon than it will operate in any significant size against Hamas in Gaza, because the president and his team really want the Gaza peace plan to succeed. And I think that the pressure on Israel to divert Israel from doing what it needs to do will be very significant. In Lebanon, I think that the U.S. and Israel see things more eye to eye and understand that Hezbollah is a menace for future regional stability. It is a cancerous organization inside Lebanon, and that it would do Lebanon, Syria, and Israel a whole lot of good if Hezbollah is really dismantled. And yes, as you say, I agree, the only country that puts its money where its mouth is in the region is Israel. And when heavy lifting is required, then Israel is there to do that job, which would be very beneficial for the Lebanese state. And I can tell you that behind the scenes, I know that Lebanese officials, government officials, and military officials are asking, pleading, and hoping for Israel to come to the rescue and get rid of Hezbollah's main capabilities, because what we're seeing on the ground is a very worrying picture. We're seeing Hezbollah creep back down to the south. We're seeing the Iranians provide Hezbollah with hundreds of millions of dollars that they don't really have to spend, but they're spending them anyhow. And we're seeing Hezbollah trying to reestablish itself in the Bekaa Valley and in southern Lebanon. So bottom line, I think every day that goes by, we're getting closer to a situation where Israel will be forced to take action, preventive action against Hezbollah. And I think that the U.S. will support it, and the Lebanese, perhaps outwardly, will be critical, but in closed sessions and away from the cameras, they will support it because they know that that is the only way that they can have peace and stability in their country. That is the way to get rid of Hezbollah.
Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, thank you so much for your insights and for joining us today.
Thank you.
3 million Israelis are dealing with trauma since October 7th. To help Israelis heal, Hadassah is there, with the largest rehabilitation center in Jerusalem, world-renowned medical centers, and youth villages. It's said, saving a life saves the world. Imagine helping millions. This is Hadassah, a life-changing force in Israel and the world.
And trucks are once again crossing from Jordan after an Israeli security official confirmed that the Allenby Bridge border crossing has reopened for goods and humanitarian aid. The crossing had been shut since September when a Jordanian aid driver opened fire, killing 2 Israeli soldiers before being shot dead. Israel says the terminal will now operate under much tighter security and stricter screening. The Allenby Bridge, a key strategic link on the Jordan River, serves as a major trade corridor with Jordan and the only exit point for millions of Palestinians in the West Bank. Passenger traffic also resumed soon after the attack, but aid trucks were blocked for months. The UN warned that Allenby is a critical lifeline for food, medical supplies, and other relief heading to Gaza. The partial reopening marks a step toward normalizing trade and restoring humanitarian flows under the strictest security yet. And moving on, United Hatzalah has been saving lives in Israel for over 2 decades by equipping regular day people with the tools and training to save lives anywhere, anytime. Now, with the launch of their brand new Ambu scooter, the organization hopes to reduce response time even more than they already have with their Ambu cycles. ILTV was at the dedication ceremony. Let's take a look.
At Tel Aviv's Mitcham HaTachana, volunteers of United Hatzalah gathered to receive a brand new Ambu scooter as part of a brand new pilot launched by the life-saving organization. United Hatzalah's goal, arriving at the scene within 90 seconds, is now getting a massive boost, with these brand new Ambu scooters set to shorten response times and allow for more efficient life-saving.
This is a very innovative move that we have started now in order to be able to provide life-saving services to the people who live in urbanic areas in the big cities, where it's sometimes impossible to get to support them, to help them when they are in need. We know that it takes sometimes a very long time to get to a patient in need, and in order to save their lives, we need to be there as quickly as possible.
Many don't know that the first few minutes in a medical emergency are the most crucial for a patient's survival. But United Hatzalah medics do know this and are now finding new ways to address this need. The volunteers earning a brand new Ambu scooter are ecstatic to get started.
I'm going to use it in Jerusalem, not only in Tel Aviv, because also Jerusalem we have small streets like in the Rova, like in the Shuk, Nachlaot, places, that's where I live, places that the motorcycle just cannot reach, and the new unit is going to be a life changer and a game changer in this area.
This is just another example of how United Hatzalah uses innovation to improve response times, refine their system, and ensure that when there is a medical emergency, United Hatzalah is here to treat patients in the best way possible and completely free of charge.
And Storm Byron is rolling across Israel right now, bringing heavy rain, strong winds, and heavy flooding. Emergency teams are on high alert across the country. For more, we go to our correspondent India Naftali, who is following the storm from the coastal city of Ashdod here in Israel. India, what's the situation on the ground right now?
Well, Lidar, the storm has already started off with heavy rainpour across the country, but so far nothing unusual has happened. However, like you said, emergency teams are on high alert. Now in Haifa, we saw over 117 millimeters of rain, but in Tel Aviv, for example, there were less impressive amounts with only about 11 millimeters that were measured as of this morning.
And now, yesterday, the country's meteorological service issued a red alert over this storm, which is the highest level of warning. I mean, what kind of flooding are we seeing, and how have storms affected the country in the past few years?
Sure, you know, it doesn't rain much in Israel, but when it does, it pours. In the past year, it feels like there have been more missile and rocket attacks than number of rainy days. But Lidar, over the past few years, there have been several tragic incidents that happened during storms, like a couple who drowned in a flooded parking garage in Tel Aviv, or people whose cars were swept away in floods and in the south who tragically passed. I think these incidents pushed authorities to take this storm and any storm very seriously, because they have seen loss of life before, and it's something that they don't want to see again. I mean, IDF bases in the south are under lockdown, and that just shows how seriously they're taking this concern. It's, again, loss of life. It's something that they don't want to see. It's something that they saw in the recent years and they don't want to see again.
And we know also that there were reports of an Israeli yacht that went missing during the storm. What's the latest on that?
I do have some good news on that. For those who haven't heard, an Israeli yacht left from here in Ashdod and went missing during the storm. They lost total contact, which prompted Israeli and international search and rescue forces to look for that yacht. Thankfully, after about a day, they were able to regain contact, and the yacht is heading back to Israel.
India, stay warm out there.
Thank you, Lidar.
And as Israelis continue rebuilding lives, communities, and livelihoods, many families in the biblical heartland say the most meaningful support isn't political, it's personal. And one of the simplest ways to stand with them is also one of the most powerful, choosing to shop from the small businesses of Judea and Samaria. You can do that through the platform Blessed by Israel. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman has more.
In Hebron, one of the oldest Jewish communities in the world, Moshe and Tehillah Yahalom raised their children with the same devotion shown by the patriarchs and matriarchs buried just meters away. Their flour is organic and fresh milled, but the real story is the family behind it. When vandals destroyed their vineyard, cutting vines and damaging irrigation, Moshe didn't walk away. He replanted every branch, refusing to give in to fear or intimidation. Today, the Yahaloms not only grow wheat and olives, they've also restored the ancient tomb of Ruth and Jesse, turning a neglected site into a place of prayer, beauty, and connection. This is the heart of Blessed by Israel, families who bring new life to ancient soil. Up in the hills of Benjamin, another story begins with a father's love. Shlomo and Naomi Keshet welcomed their son Elnatan, born with Down syndrome, into a bustling home of 6 boys. Shlomo worked for years in the olive oil industry, dreaming of a way to connect his son to the land. That dream became Adva Soaps, a small factory producing handmade, all-natural soaps using local herbs and olive oil. Today, Elnatan works alongside his father, stamping, wrapping, shipping products that reach homes all around the world. And Shlomo's mission has grown. He now employs other adults with special needs from Judea and Samaria, giving them dignity, purpose, and community through meaningful work. And in the Jordan Valley, what began with a tractor, a horse, and a young couple's hope has become a thriving oasis. Omer and Naama Tidya moved to the desert north of Jericho nearly 2 decades ago, determined to turn barren land into farms of abundance. Their 7 children now help run a flourishing grove of olives, mangoes, dates, and even a small herd of sheep. Their award-winning olive oil is just one of the products available through Blessed by Israel. These are not just producers, they are modern-day pioneers of Israel's heartland, families who bake, farm, plant, craft, and rebuild, even amid uncertainty. And this year, as Hanukkah approaches, you can strengthen their light to shine into the world even brighter. By choosing gifts from Blessed by Israel, your holiday shopping becomes a direct investment in the families who keep the biblical heartland alive. You're not just buying wonderful gifts like olive oil, soaps, jewelry, honey, or handcrafted goods. You're uplifting the people who make them.
And you can scan the QR code to visit blessedbyisrael.com and use ILTV's code BLESSISRAEL for 10% off your first order. And tonight, Maccabi Tel Aviv basketball will host their very first home game in the EuroLeague in over 2 years. Due to Israel's war with Hamas, the Israeli basketball team have only been playing away games due to security issues. But now they're back and hosting their first home game against Villeurbanne. ILTV's Devo Klein has the story.
Maccabi Tel Aviv players are preparing for their very first home game in over 2 years. With "We're Back" shirts draped on the stadium chairs, the team has been waiting patiently to play in their home courts in the European Basketball League.
מתרגשים, לא מאמינים שזה קורה. רואים, מתחילים פה קצת לקשט את היציע, התחושות שהתגעגענו אליהם, ובאמת לא יכול לחכות לזה.
Maccabi Tel Aviv's game against Villeurbanne tonight will be the second European League game to be played in Israel since the regulations have been lifted, with Hapoel Jerusalem hosting the first ever game back in their home court in the Holy City against Hamburg in the Eurocup. EuroLeague is Europe's top-tier and most prestigious basketball competition, while the Eurocup is the second-tier competition, making tonight's game significant, not only for the team, but for basketball fans across the country.
We're really exciting for tomorrow, like playing again in front of our home crowd. That's really special for us. We went through a lot of difficulties in the last 2.5 years, and finally we are home again.
Back and hopefully better than ever.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Rain showers are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 13 degrees Celsius or 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see cloudy skies and rain showers alongside steady temperatures with highs of 18 degrees Celsius or 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our new live channel. And you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Keep up with us on social media. That's at ILTV News_Israel on all platforms. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Ladar Gravelazi. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.